Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show, where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. Sometimes I do it through blind tastings. This is going to be a fun, the next three episodes are going to focus on Merlot, and it's going to be Washington versus California. I'm very excited. I've said it many times, I really love Washington State Merlot. Doesn't mean California can't do Merlot. They do some Merlots really well. And we have a few of those in the lineups to come. So, we're going to keep score here. 4 episodes, just 2 wines per episode. Which comes in first, California or Washington State? I'm kind of nervous, because I'm a Washington State guy, but that's okay. I love wines from around the world. I may do an episode too on Italian Merlot, because Merlot is really popular in northern Italy, and we don't often think about Italy as a place for Merlot. So, we're going to get started, and as we do these 4 episodes, this is episode number 1, we'll talk about a few things about Merlot. And in this episode, we're going to look at what happened to Merlot. Why did we saw such a huge decline in the sales of Merlot in the after the early 90s? And I think there's 2 basic reasons why we saw that decline. One was the movie Sideways. They bashed Merlot in there. It wasn't meant to be harmful to the sales of Merlot, but that's the way it turned out. Pinot Noir soared because Miles went on and on and on about Pinot Noir, and he just did not want anything to do with Merlot. Even though at the end of the movie he drank Merlot in the burger joint. The Cheval Blanc has a lot of Merlot in it, and Cab Franc. So Sideways had a lot to do with the decline of Merlot sales, but there's another reason, and if you can think of that reason, please make a comment. I'll mention it in the last episode number 4, as to the other reason why Merlot sales fail. Now, they're starting to see a resurgence of Merlot sales, and I think a lot of it has to do with the great Merlots coming out of Washington State and some coming out of California, obviously. And there are some labels out of California that really never suffered with Merlot. There you go. Merlot was really popular in the late 80s, early 90s. They planted a bunch of it. Not so much anymore. It's kind of gone to Zinfandel and Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Noir, of course. Parents of Merlot. Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot have a parent in common. That's Cab Franc. But the other parent, I hope I get this right, is Magdalene Noir de Charente is the name of the grape. I've never heard of that. I was doing some research, came across that one. Magdalene Noir de Charente is the name of the grape. Have you ever heard of that one? I'm sure some of you have. So there's just a couple little tidbits. I want you to please make a comment as to the second reason maybe why Merlot sales really saw a decline. The movie had a lot to do with it, Sideways, but there's something else that had something to do with it as well. Okay, let's get started. The challenge between Washington and California, episode 1, with number 1. There you go. Rinse. Alright, this is exciting. By the way, one of the most expensive wines in the world, and the most sought after, is Petrus, basically Merlot, from Pomerol, on the right bank of Bordeaux. Pretty interesting that that's the case. Okay, let's get started. Oh, I can smell this one already. Good color on this one, fairly dark. And we'll talk more in episode 2 about different characteristics between Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, and what they do with Merlot a lot of times. But we're just going to keep it simple right now. Definitely getting like a red raspberry, licorice. This one has chocolate on the nose as well. Getting a little cedary component. Almost like red plums coming through. And red cherries. So there you go. Let's see what we get on the palate. So the licorice and chocolate notes come through on the palate with the red cherries, for sure. Good balance on this wine. The initial attack is solid fruit. As we know, Merlot is not as tannic as Cab, so they use Merlot a lot to blend, which we'll talk about some more, to kind of soften up some more tannic style wines. The plum notes really come out underneath the mid palate. Solid fruit front to finish. Good texture on this wine. I get a little minerality, which is really cool on this. A little chalkiness. A little touch of bittersweet chocolate on the back side of this one. Solid Merlot. I mean, if you're going to drink a Merlot, this has a little bit of a peppery edge to it on the finish as well, which is really cool. Nice structure, good flow across the palate. I like that minerality on the back end of this and that touch of bittersweet chocolate at the very back side. The red cherries, the plums, kind of all come through on this wine, front to finish. Good initial attack on the palate, and then just kind of flows nicely across. Yeah, I like that Merlot. I do. Not super complex, but very well made. I like the minerality, which you don't often get in Merlot, at least from the New World. Remember, this is California versus Washington. And that kind of bitter chocolate, this thing needs food. I would say this would be good with, have a hot dog with it. I mean, something like that. I don't eat hot dogs, but there you go. I don't eat hot dogs. Only in a pinch. I won't even tell you why I don't eat hot dogs. It goes back to when I was a kid. All right, number 2. Give a glass a little rinse. Number 2. There you go. I always think I'm putting them way down on the bag, and they always end up way up here. I'm not sure what that's about. Yeah. California versus Washington State Merlot. A little darker than the last one on this one. Nice, not hedging to black, but really dark burgundy color on this. That's a little bit reddish color as well. Let's see what we get on the nose. Definitely licorice and chocolate on this one as well. Yeah, the chocolate comes through big time. It's a little darker fruit on the nose. You get a little kind of hedging towards black plum and dark cherries. It's interesting. The other one, number 1, had a little more reddish fruit. This one, a little darker. Let's see what we get on the palate. Totally different. Totally different on the palate. This has a brighter edge to it. Now, Merlot isn't known to have a lot of malic acid, which is a green apple acid. Cab does. This one has some acidity to it, which is very interesting. Bright cherry notes. This has a bitter edge on the backside as well. A little red raspberry coming through with the darker plum. Interesting. On the nose, I get such a dark fruit, but on the palate, definitely the red cherries come through. Licorice. Almost a green element in the background, like a little bit of vegetation, like maybe blackberry leaves or salal leaves coming through. This is a very interesting Merlot. It's surprising to me because Merlot can be a lot softer than a Cab. Definitely not as acidic as a Cab. This has acid on it, which could mean they picked it early, of course. That would be my guess, but very interesting. Merlot. Seems to be a little tea component coming through. Not super stoked about this wine. It's very acidic. Needs this one. You think that one needs food from minerality. This one really needs food. This would be good with a stew or a steak, obviously. But very, very bright in the mouth. Almost lifted, almost crunchy tannins. Yeah, very unusual Merlot. Very, very unusual. Not what I was expecting. Not super complex. Very bright. You get the bright cherries. There's some plum in there as well. And the chocolate doesn't come through at all on the palate, which is really peculiar. I make that noise because, you know, we're talking... yeah, nah. Let's go straight up. So there's nothing wrong with this wine. Just wasn't what I was expecting from Merlot. Not super complex, but this one had a little more complexity. That minerality at the end really, really made it interesting. And what came... This one surprises me, you know. A little too much acidity for my good. I didn't seem like it was in balance with the fruit. But, you know, there you go. Okay. California versus Washington. Merlot. In last place is number 2. I think you guys figured it out. I thought it was a little acidic, very simple wine. What do we got going on here? Ah, you're kidding me. You got to be freaking kidding me. I'll give it a C+. Stupid. 2018 Duckhorn Vineyards Napa Valley Merlot. Now, guys, really? Are you serious? This rolls in at $55. Guys, I'm disappointed. I really am. I'm very disappointed in that. I don't know why the acidity is there. I expect much more from Duckhorn. I mean, my goodness, it's expensive wine. Oh, in first place with a B. So I like this. It had some minerality to it. Was more interesting. You know, it had that nice mouthfeel, that good texture, high in acidity. If you like a high acid wine, maybe this needs a little bit more time. Maybe it'll do better, but give it a C+. With a B, we have the 2018 North Star Merlot Columbia Valley. Rolls in at $37. There you go. A lot of you guys are familiar with North Star. There you go. I mean, I am totally shocked. I really am. Now, I don't know if it's the vintage on this one. 18 wasn't a bad vintage, actually, throughout the West Coast, so I'm not positive about that. But in triumph, Washington comes in first place. So it's now Washington 1, California 0. Duckhorn Merlot, are you kidding me? Wow. Don't forget to comment. I want to see where you're coming in on this. You know, what is the other thing that caused the decline of sales in Merlot? Well, if they're making this stuff. Just saying. There is another reason. Not just the movie Sideways, but there's another reason. And we had this in a discussion a long time ago, and I thought it was a very good point that this winemaker made about the decline of Merlot sales. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. Getting really close to 500 subscribers. I'm kind of stoked. Very stoked about that. Just a few away. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to my channel. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.